Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping into the story of this little car from China, the Wuling Hongguang MINI EV, and it's become this just huge success, almost unbelievable, really.
It really has taken off.
And the thing that grabs you immediately, right away, is the price. Get this, at launch, it was 2.888, which back then was under 500,000 Japanese yen.
Yeah, less than 500K.
Even now, with currency changes, it's only about 510,000 yen.
Still incredibly low.
Think about it. A brand new car for potentially under 500,000 yen. That's just wow.
It definitely makes you stop and think.
And, when you hear a price like that, it's so easy to jump to that conclusion we hear all the time. Oh, well, that's just cheap Chinese labor.
Right. Right. And if that's where your head went, the material we've looked at today really makes it clear that, well, that view's pretty outdated now, especially for Chinese manufacturing today. Labor costs aren't just cheap across the board anymore. They're a real factor. That and land costs, too. They're significant concerns. This whole success story, it's definitely not built just on low-cost assembly lines.
Okay, right. So let's unpack this then. Our mission today really is to get past those sort of easy assumptions. We want to understand the real story, the more nuanced picture behind this car's super low price and why it's become so massively popular, digging into, the specific strategies and the details from the sources.
Exactly. Because it wasn't an accident, it looks like a very calculated, strategic play. They leveraged specific market conditions, government policies, manufacturing realities. It was all quite deliberate.
Okay, so where do we start? Maybe with the car itself. And who's actually buying these things?
Yeah, good place to start. The source material describes it as maybe not like a car in the way people in the West might think of it. It's more like I think that translates roughly to like a substitute for walking or maybe riding a scooter.
Ah, okay. Like really basic, personal, local transport.
Exactly that. And it really hit the mark with two main groups of customers.
Okay.
So first, you've got people in smaller cities, maybe provincial cities, who just need a way to get to work, a commuter vehicle. These cities are growing fast, but maybe the subway systems and stuff haven't quite caught up everywhere.
Right, so it's buses or your own wheels.
Pretty much. And a full-size car is still a big financial hurdle for a lot of working people there. So the Hongguang MINI EV, with its ultra-low price, it suddenly makes having your own transport possible, achievable for this huge group.
Okay, that makes sense. And you said there was a second group.
Yeah, and this one's quite different, actually. It points to another part of the strategy. We're talking about young women, often in the bigger, more developed cities.
Interesting. Why specifically?
Well, it comes down to the car's design and, crucially, how easy it is to drive. Driving in a crowded Chinese city, it can be really intense. Packed streets, tiny spaces. Parking is a nightmare, especially parallel parking in, no space at all.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine. Definitely daunting.
Very. So a car this small, key car size, it's just so much easier to handle, to maneuver, to park. So for these urban women, it wasn't just about the low price, though that helped. It was also fundamentally about, hey, I can actually drive this thing confidently. Capability.
And the design itself plays into that, right? Even though they obviously cut costs where they could.
Absolutely. They definitely stripped down the interior to save money, simplified the dashboard. And the source points this out, they were clever about it. They invested in these little design touches that give it personality, make it appealing, but don't add a ton of cost.
Like what?
Things like that distinctive orange outline around the minimal controls, or the fun little plus sign on the gas pedal and a press on the brake.
Haha. Okay, like the designers were having a bit of fun even with the budget limits.
Exactly. And it's not just, superficial cuteness. The source suggests this focus on personality, even in a basic car, really resonated. It appealed directly to segments like those young urban women, and it helped build this sense of community that became, really central to the car's whole image and marketing. People pick up on that fun factor.
And thinking about the urban buyers again,
Yeah.
that low initial price must leave a lot of room in the budget for making it your own.
Oh, totally. That's a huge part of it. The source talks about owners going wild with customization, everything from elaborate anime wraps, to personalized interiors, custom paint jobs.
Wow.
And even some really out there stuff, like people apparently building six-wheeled versions or making them look like little tanks.
No way. 6 wheels?
Yeah. And Wuling, very smartly, leaned right into this. They actively promoted customization on social media, like Douyin, which is the Chinese TikTok.
Ah, clever.
which just encouraged more people to personalize their cars, share their designs online. It built this massive, very visible community around the car. So yeah, the low price wasn't just about access. It enabled this whole lifestyle and design appeal. That became a key part of its identity, its success.
Okay, so you've got the affordability angle for commuters, the ease of driving for city folks, and this design that sparks personalization and community. But let's circle back to that rock-bottom price itself. How is that really feasible at scale? If it's not just about cheap labor, what's the manufacturing magic?
Yeah, this is super important, and the source material digs into the manufacturing side quite a bit. So the Hongguang MINI EV, it's not built on some completely new, state-of-the-art, dedicated EV platform they designed from zero.
Oh.
No, the source indicates it actually uses an architecture that's, well, very similar to a traditional gasoline car, like front-engine, rear-drive layout, the motor's in the back, and the battery sits kind of where the propeller shaft would normally go in a gas car.
Wait, so they're basically reusing fundamental designs.
Yeah.
And maybe even production lines from their regular gasoline cars.
That seems to be exactly it. Wuling, the parent company, SGMW, is enormous. They make tons of gasoline vehicles, especially those super popular, robust commercial vans. They call them like magic cars because they're just everywhere and so useful.
Right.
So they have huge production volumes already, super optimized supply chains, know-how for all those basic parts. By adapting that existing gas car architecture and manufacturing knowledge, they could slash the development costs and the production costs for this EV.
Okay.
They didn't need to reinvent everything, new factory tools, new supplier contracts for, basic chassis parts or suspension bits.
It's like the source says, a very pragmatic choice, leveraging what they already had, their past investments, their expertise, especially for a vehicle that, at least initially, was just going to be one part of their overall sales mix.
Precisely. And speaking of cost, this leads to, well, the really bold, almost counterintuitive part of their whole strategy. It becomes clearer when you look at the company's finances overall. The source highlights that Wuling's parent company, SGMW, their overall net profit margin in 2020, it was razor thin, just 0.2%.
0.2%.
Yeah, for sure.
For a massive car company selling millions of vehicles.
Yeah, 0.2%. The source actually calculates it out. Based on their total sales that year, which included lots of gasoline cars too, the average profit per vehicle sold was only about 89 yuan.
89 yuan. Oh, is that in yen?
Roughly 1,600 yen, average profit per car.
1,600 yen.
And the source suggests the profit margin on the Hongguang MINI EV specifically is probably even lower than that average, maybe under 1,000 yen per car.
That's staggering. You could spend more on, giving the customer a bottle of water during the test drive.
Oh.
How is that sustainable? Selling cars for basically no profit, maybe even a tiny loss on the sticker price. How does that work for a huge manufacturer?
Okay, so this is where the government's NEV credit policy comes in. And according to the source, this is the absolute linchpin, the core of how this model actually makes money.
NEV credits, new energy vehicle credits.
Exactly. China has this dual credit system, CAFC, which is corporate average fuel consumption, and the NEV credits. Basically, automakers get negative points for making gasoline cars, especially less efficient ones, and they get positive points for making new energy vehicles, like EVs.
Okay, negative for gas, positive for electric.
Right. And every year, manufacturers have to balance their books. They need to get their total points to 0 or better.
And what if you have too many negative points? Like if you make loads of gasoline cars?
Well, you've got two main choices. You either have to buy positive NEV credits from another car maker who has extra, or you pay a hefty fine to the government.
Okay, I think I see where this is going.
Yeah.
So a company like Wuling suddenly churning out millions of these little EVs.
Exactly. They generate a massive surplus of those positive NEV credits, way more than they need to offset their own gasoline car production.
So they can sell the extras.
They can sell those surplus credits to other manufacturers, maybe foreign brands, or domestic ones focused on SUVs who are struggling to meet their quotas and need the positive points.
Right.
And the source did some estimation here. It suggests Wuling likely had a really significant surplus of these credits in 2020. And if they sold all those credits on the open market at the going rate, the potential profit just from selling those credits per MNI EV sold could be around 8110 yuan.
Wait, 8110 yuan. What's that in yen?
That's roughly 143,000 yen.
Hold on. Let me get this straight. They make maybe 1,600 yen, perhaps even less, on the sale of the actual car. but they could potentially make 143,000 yen from selling the government credits they get for making that car.
That is precisely what the source's analysis suggests, yes. It strongly implies the real profit engine for the Hongguang MINI EV wasn't the price tag you see in the showroom. It was the value derived from government policy designed specifically to push EV production. The source even does this kind of striking calculation, suggesting that the effective profit margin, purely from the credits, could be as high as 28.1% per vehicle.
28%.
Yeah. And it compares that to, I think it was Ferrari's reported profit margin in 2019, which was around 23.2% per car, according to one source cited.
So this tiny 500,000 yen city car could effectively be generating a higher profit margin per unit than a Ferrari.
Potentially, yes. But not from selling the car itself, but from mastering the credit system.
That completely turns the traditional auto business model on its head. It's incredible.
It really shows how strategically they played the policy game, and the timing was brilliant too.
How so?
Well, the central government's direct purchase subsidies for EVs, those have been getting smaller and smaller for years. By 2019, they were almost gone.
Right. I remember reading that actually caused EV sales overall to dip a bit in 2019. They weren't getting that big subsidy boost anymore.
Exactly right. And that created this perfect storm, really, two big opportunities for Wuling. First, with those central subsidies mostly gone, the actual sticker price became super critical for buyers. The Hongguang MINI EV's genuinely low price was suddenly incredibly attractive, and it didn't need a government handout to the consumer to seem cheap.
Okay, makes sense. Price competition became key.
And second, that sales slump in 2019 meant a lot of other manufacturers, especially the traditional ones, ended up with too many gasoline cars relative to their EV sales. So they were short on NEV credits, which drove up the demand and therefore the market price for those credits.
Ah, so Wuling launched the NII EV right when buyers were most price sensitive about the car itself. And when the credits generated by making that car were most valuable to other companies needing to buy them.
Perfect timing. Absolutely strategic entry.
And there were local factors too, weren't there? Something about a specific city.
Yes. The source highlights the Luzhu model. Luzhu is a city where SGMW has a major base. Facing its own issues with congestion and pollution, the local government there really got behind these mini EVs early on. They offered local purchase subsidies, they gave them special privileges like being allowed to use bus lanes,
Oh, wow.
and even practical things like allowing 2 mini EVs to park side by side in one standard parking spot.
That's huge in a crowded city.
Totally. And this local success story, this Luzhu model, it kind of served as a proof of concept. It showed the potential and likely encouraged other local governments to also create supportive policies for these small EVs.
Okay, so it really wasn't just one thing. Not just cheap labor by any stretch. It sounds like this complex mix, leveraging existing manufacturing assets from their huge gasoline car business,
Yep.
making this incredibly daring move to price the car itself for almost zero direct profit,
The sticker price wasn't the point.
and then expertly using that NEV credit system as the main and potentially highly profitable revenue stream.
Absolutely key.
Plus, hitting the market at just the right moment, when policy and demand for credits lined up perfectly.
Timing, yeah.
Designing a car that really hit a nerve with specific buyers. Commuters needing affordable wheels, urban drivers needing something easy, and tapping into that customization culture.
Right, the product market fit was spot on.
And then benefiting from those supportive local policies like in Luzhu, it's like all these pieces had to fit together.
Absolutely. The source lays it out pretty clearly. This wasn't some lucky break based on old ideas about low costs. It was, just as you said, a targeted, multifaceted strategy, adapting manufacturing, innovating the business model around policy, timing it right, understanding the market deeply, and designing a product that created its own community.
What an absolutely fascinating story. It just completely changes how you might think a car company, especially one making affordable cars, actually turns a profit.
It really does challenge the conventional way of thinking, doesn't it?
Yeah. So as we wrap up this deep dive, maybe here's something for you, the listener, to mull over. What does this kind of business model, where a huge chunk of the profit comes not from selling the thing itself, but from navigating and leveraging government regulations and credits? What does that tell us? What might it mean for the future of how value is created, especially in industries that are heavily shaped by policy, by incentives, by regulations? Could we see this approach pop up elsewhere? Not just cars, but other kinds of goods, maybe globally. How might it reshape things? So it's something to think about.